This build doesn't just take out heroic elites, it pretty much completely deletes them from the game. I'm not kidding, it hits like a tank, literally one-shotting elites and named enemies on heroic, and it makes reloading a thing of the past. As far as farming heroic control points go, this is the build. But like all builds, it's not without its flaws, so let's dig into it, how it works, how it plays, and whether or not you should add this build to your loadouts. In this video, I'm going to go over the full build, the playstyle, and the pros and cons of using it. And when it comes to this build, the pros and cons swing pretty hard in either direction. Before we get into the build, a quick disclaimer. I am over SHD 1000, so I do have the additional attributes from having my watch that high. If you're not there yet, your final attributes for this build may vary to mine until you hit 1000, which I know you will. Alright, let's start by talking about the gear. For the mask, I have the Hot Shot mask with weapon damage, headshot damage, and more headshot damage in the mod slot. For the chest, I am using the named Walker chest, Chain Killer, which gives the build the 5% weapon damage from the One Piece bronze set bonus, and I have weapon damage, crit damage, and headshot damage for the attributes. I've also added a little more headshot damage in the mod slot. For the talent, Chain Killer comes with Perfect Headhunter. After killing an enemy with a headshot, your next weapon hit within 30 seconds deals an additional 150% damage of that killing blow. Damage is capped up to 800% of your weapon damage. This is raised to 1250% if your headshot damage is greater than 150%, which with this build, it definitely is. For the holster, the build is using a Hot Shot holster. This gives us the 2-piece gear set bonus of 30% marksman rifle damage and 30% weapon handling, which also gives us that accuracy, stability, reload speed, overall a great attribute. I have weapon damage and headshot damage for the attributes on this holster. The backpack here is the named backpack The Gift, one of my favourite DPS backpacks. This gives us 15% headshot damage from the Providence One Piece brand set bonus, weapon damage, crit damage, and headshot damage for the attributes, and a little bit more headshot damage in the mod slot. The Gift backpack comes with Perfect Vigilance. Increase total weapon damage by 25%. Taking damage disables the buff for 3 seconds. The Gift is a Dark Zone exclusive, so if you haven't managed to get your hands on one yet, a normal Providence backpack with the standard version of Vigilance will do pretty much the exact same damage, with the only difference between the named and perfect version being a 1 second reduction in the time the buff is disabled for when you take damage. So they are both 25% extra damage, just don't get hit. For the gloves, I have Hot Shot gloves giving the build the 3-piece gear set bonus of 30% headshot damage, and I have weapon damage and headshot damage for the attributes here. And finally for the gear we have the knee pads, and finishing off the gear set we have a pair of Hot Shot knee pads. This gives the build the final gear set bonus, Headache. First headshot with a marksman rifle will increase the next headshot by 20%. The second consecutive headshot with a marksman rifle will give 10% armor. If at full armor, you get a bonus armor of max 50% of your current value. And for the third consecutive headshot, it will refill your magazine. From the fourth headshot forward, agents will get all 3 bonuses for each consecutive headshot kill. Missing a headshot will reset the cycle. This is how we avoid reloading, plus we get some extra damage and a little bit of armor repair too, that doesn't hurt. Which to be honest makes Hot Shot a fantastic gear set if you're using a marksman rifle. Talking of marksman rifle, let's have a look at the weapons. Now for the primary, I could be using a more optimal primary weapon, but RNGesus and Lucifer have teamed up to ruin my luck when it comes to this drop, so I have the next best thing. However, I will give you a rundown of my ideal weapon for this build, while I continue to grind my teeth farming for it. So let's have a look at what I have, and then I will talk more about what you need if you really want to min-max the build. Currently, for the primary, I am using the classic M44 carbine. This is one I crafted myself. It comes with a base damage of 423.1k, and a total of 1.1 million with the build as I have it at the moment. It has an RPM of 55 and a mag size of 5 rounds. For the attributes, we have marksman rifle damage, headshot damage, and I've rolled damage to targets out of cover for the third attribute. The talent here is, of course, determined. After killing an enemy with a headshot, the next shot landed on any enemy will be a guaranteed headshot. This is powerful, especially when you combine it with the hot shot gear set. If you haven't used determined before, this essentially means that after our first headshot kill, hitting an enemy on any part of the body counts as a headshot. This means we can land a body shot or even shoot them in the leg, and it acts as a headshot. This counts towards the headache talent and perfect headhunter. So as long as we don't miss a shot and we continue to chain our shots, we get all of this damage indefinitely. Plus, we never have to reload, which I hope gives you an idea of the real power of this build. For the mods on the M44 carbine, I have the plus 3% headshot damage on sight, 5% weapon damage on the mag, and 10% accuracy for the underrail. Now yes, I know I could get an extra 42% headshot damage if I use the digital scope, but this is more about personal preference and how I like to play the build. I'm not a big sniper player, so running the M44 carbine as more of a rifle than a sniper is just more fun to me. I'm more mobile, and it means I can move around without having to constantly zoom in and zoom out. If you really want to max out your damage with this build, I would probably recommend running a full sniper scope for those big headshot numbers, but I've never really had a problem with damage farming heroic control points with the 3% headshot sight, and I just find the build much more fun to play without constantly having to zoom in. Now let's talk upgrades. As I mentioned, this weapon is not really my first choice, but unfortunately my second. Ideally, you'd want to run this build with the named marksman rifle, the White Death, with the same third attribute as mine and the same talent. White Death is the named M44 carbine, but it comes with a much higher headshot damage attribute of 137% instead of the 111%. This is its unique attribute with it being a named weapon. As much as I've farmed, I have had rough luck getting one with the attributes and talent I want, but to be honest, that really hasn't slowed me down with this build. Onto the secondary. For this, to be honest, you can use pretty much whatever you like. I tend to run the St. Elmo's exotic AR because I just enjoy the weapon, but really I rarely swapped my secondary, with the whole build revolving around the determined talent and chaining those big headshot numbers. Same goes for the sidearm. Personally, I like to run something with Finisher or Perfect Finisher to get that extra damage buff, or the KDI card custom for a quick boost to your skills. Talking skills, there's actually quite a lot of flexibility here for you to kind of shape the skills to what you prefer. With this being more of a weapon damage build, there are a few skills I found more useful than others, mainly for utility. Anything that can make a target stand still is going to be fantastic to help you start your chain and get your first headshot kill, something like the foam launcher or the blinder firefly. A heal also doesn't hurt. Without having a shield to hide behind with it being a marksman rifle build, a good heal can go a long way, something like the repair hive. Or another way to go is to avoid damage altogether and try a skill that actually pulls aggro away from you, something like the assault turret, the drone, or the decoy. Try a few things out and see what works best for you. The specialization for this build is of course the sharpshooter. This gives us 15% headshot damage with the M44, flashbangs, 15% stability, and marksman rifle ammo regen in cover. Extra damage, stability, ammo, and one of my favorite grenades in the game, so this is pretty much a no-brainer with us using a marksman rifle build. And because I have forgotten myself in the past, don't forget to set your weapon damages in your specialization to your marksman rifle and whatever secondary you choose. Before we talk playstyle and pros and cons, let's have a look at the current stats of the build and give you an overall look at it. Crit chance and damage are on the low side here at 16% chance and 57% damage, but that's not really what we've been leaning into with this build. We're going to get all of our damage from that 283.7% headshot damage, which is a big number, and if I can finally get a White Death to drop, that will shoot up. We also get 40% reload speed, 50% accuracy, and 55% stability, which all comes together to give the build a very smooth and solid feel with very little sway, allowing you to really line up those headshots. Here is a quick overview of the build. I have sharpshooter for the specialization, flashbang grenades, the classic M44 carbine, St. Elmo's and Orbit pistol for the weapons, hotshot mask, chain killer on the chest, hotshot holster, the gift backpack, and hotshot for the gloves and knee pads. And on this particular iteration of the build, I'm using the repair hive and the assault turret for the skills. Okay, playstyle. This is a very powerful build as long as you get the rhythm and the shots down. Your first target needs to be the weakest in the group, ideally a red bar. These will drop in a single headshot, so if you can get them before you're spotted, you're in for a pretty easy ride. If there are no red bars in sight, use a skill to either distract or CC the next weakest in place, so you can easily land 2 headshots in a row. Avoid anyone wearing a helmet like the Hyena Rushes or the True Sun Heavy Gunners. These enemies don't take headshot damage until you break that helmet, so try and leave these for last. Once you've got your buffs going from headshots, just settle down and get comfy. Avoid targeting enemies with helmets or robotics, and then just chain your headshots. As long as you can keep this up, even the named heroic bosses will drop in a single shot. To round off this video, let's talk pros and cons. Pros. Massive single target damage. This current version of the build I've seen go up to 26 mil as a body shot, and it can get even higher than that if you get lucky with your White Death drop. When fully buffed, you don't have to worry about reloading or even ammo with the regeneration. Great solo build. Cons. This is a great solo build, but on the other hand, it makes it quite an annoying and frustrating build to play in a group, because you need the headshot kills to get your buffs going, and that's pretty hard with other players in the mix. Being an all-red build without a shield to hide behind, it is very glass cannon. It does not take much to put you on the floor, so you really need to be sure you're not caught out in the open. Enemies with helmets can easily ruin your day if you don't know how to outplay them and kite them around. That's the build. Let me know if this is something you've already tried, you might already have in your loadout, or is it something completely new you're willing to give a go? Drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.